Hey guys, so give me a second to set this up, and so I'm in the right frame of mind here. Um, we'll go up. Okay, good. So I'm talking about Johann Pestalozzi, and I chose him because I felt that his relationship-based model of education was really something I strive to do as an educator. And even though it was a couple hundred years ago that he began to put this in practice, I still feel like it's very relevant to today. Um, and so his whole idea is the idea of trust-based teaching. And as you guys read in Gutek, he talks about his relationship with his mother and then the servant, and then because of that, her servant after his father died, they instilled in him a trust, a love that wasn't about punishment. It was more about making sure that he could become the best little boy he could, but also encouraging him to be inquisitive. And so that's where that idea of a child's natural inquisitiveness comes in. And Pestalozzi felt that in his educational model, his method, that he wanted to be able to inspire children to do that and to reach out and try to understand. And so he came up with this object or sense-based learning. He borrowed some of that from Comenius, but the idea here is that you want to encourage a child to ask questions of the world around them and to feel like they have the freedom, and even if they're mistaken, that you correct them, but then move them on. And it wasn't based on punishment; it was based more on directing them in the right way out of a loving relationship. Now, obviously, he was a product of the Enlightenment. He was very much influenced by, again, Comenius and Locke and Rousseau. In the book Emily, he had a great deal of it was influenced by that in terms of this natural education that he went through. But he differed from Rousseau in that he didn't see education as just for the elite, as Rousseau had kind of implemented in his thing. And it also was the key to future success. So obviously, when he started his first school at the farm at Neuhof, and which was helped him establish his methodology, his ideals, but obviously was not a commercial success and had to be shut down. He did learn and that how to be able to connect to children and teach, and really that was the seeds that were planted to be able to really get him into the next phase of his career, I guess you would say. Now, the Anschwung, I can never say this right, but the idea here is that in order for students to learn, they need to have direct contact with what it is they're studying. In other words, it's not an abstract thing. It's very concrete. And so in that way, you give the learning some context, and children are able to interact with what it is they're learning. And by that, they're able to, process it on a lot of different levels. It's not just, a catechism that they're reading and then trying to recite back. He was very much against making sure that kids were studying things that were appropriate for their age group. And so he had a far-reaching effect. If you look at, stage theorists later on in the 20th century, like Piaget, of understanding that children learned in stages. In other words, their minds were developing, and you had to give them what they could handle at particular stages, just like Piaget talked about with his 4 stages of cognitive development, that they're able, abstract ideology or ideas aren't something a 3-year-old is going to be really be able to get into. And so he wanted to make sure that all of his curriculum was age appropriate. And also the idea brought in this was, again, to create curriculum for that within each of the students. Now, he also had a saying about, you're educating the head, the heart, and the hands. And a lot of people feel like the main focus here was the heart. But the idea here is that it was based on relationships, and students, they would interact with the world around them. So education wasn't just for education. It was to give them a leg up in how to understand the world and interact with the world around them. And so that's where relationships became really important. And then what some people call this pedagogy of love. And this is the idea that Gutek refers to this, and others, Mosqueda, some of the other guys that I read up on, they said the whole focus was, as a student would grow and learn and they would become more connected with the world around them. And eventually, in this social context of taking that education they have and applying it, it would lead them to love the world around them, and then ultimately then be able to love God because they love the people that they're helping with those kind of things. So that's kind of an ideal goal with that. And then who did he influence? Well, One, I could say this: he had a big influence on the impact in teacher training. If teachers don't understand the curriculum, then they're not going to be able to relate it, and so they have to have a firm sense of what they're doing and the not just the content base, but how to deliver it as well. Frobel spent a couple of years with him and was able to glean from him. And before he started kindergarten, he had a big impact on Horace Mann and the Common School movement, and even up into the 20th century and progressive movement. I still think he's very relevant to today. Not relative, relevant to today. What's interesting though is the Swiss government, not the Swiss government, but he was kind of put aside for a while because they didn't like the idea of his relationship-based education, this trust-based education, which was really the crux of everything. So anyway, I hope that gives you some insight on Pestalozzi, and I enjoyed doing this project, and I enjoyed this class, and hope you guys will give me some good comments, and I hope to be able to look at your videos as well. Thank you.